On this little technique tip, I was going to show how to embroider a thick terry towel. There are many ways again to do this one. Everyone has their favorites, so I'm going to show my favorite ways to do it. Because depending on the thickness of the towel, some of the ones you might be able to hoop the towel and the stabilizer, but some of these really thick ones like this one, it would be almost impossible to get it safely on a hoop, but also just to keep it there so that it doesn't pop out. So my favorite ones for these big thick towels are the magnetic hoops. This is the 8x8. That's the one I'm going to use today. But I'll show also the way that if you want to use your standard hoop and don't want to hoop entire piece, there are ways to do that one too. Well, first about stabilizers. We could use just the ordinary tailway stabilizer. Again, there are multiple brands. This is the Baby Lock one. Or then we could use, of course, even a water soluble in the back if you don't want to have any stabilizer left. This is the mesh type of stabilizer, so that would work also if your design is not super dense. My favorite one is the one that is halfway between water soluble and the tailway. One of the brand names is Floriani Stitch and Wash. It looks like a tailway stabilizer, but it is half water soluble, so when you put it in a washing, it just gradually every wash takes away the remaining stabilizer. And then the one that I'm mostly going to use today on my bigger hoop, because that stitch and wash roll I have at home is a bit too small for the big hoop. This is actually a dime. It was created for the in the hoop projects because it is a water soluble one, washes away. And that's just kind of half water soluble. So I'm going to use that one on the larger hook today. Many instructions tell to use sticky stabilizer, those peel and stick ones. And one example I have in this one is the stick there tailway or Floriani Perfect Stick. And of course every company who makes stabilizers has similar kind of ones. The only thing about those ones is that I had a bit bad experience with the first time I used it, because I hooped it, scored the surface, and then I laid my towel on top of it. When I pulled it out, my towel got big loops. So kind of be careful when you remove it that just don't just rip it really fast so that you don't get big loops. Maybe my towel was a cheap one and it just kind of got those extra loops caught behind. Another option for the stabilizer that I could use instead of that peel and stick type of one, I could use the water activated. And there's an example from Floriani, they call it wet and stick. So these ones, they come with the grids, which helps on positioning, and then also plain. They both work the same way. So in this case, I would just hook my stabilizer, and one side has a little bit more shinier surface. And then I would just take a little sprinkle of water, smooth it out, and let it sit just a little bit. It'll become tacky. So it's still a bit. Okay, here we go. It's just after a little while, when it sits in there, it becomes very tacky. They are a bit safer because that way, to remove them, I can deactivate the glue again just by moistening it from the back side and then carefully peeling it out. So that would be another option. Or of course, then we could use just the standard tailway stabilizer and a temporary spray adhesive. Other thing what we need as a stabilizer is something on the top. We could use the water soluble topping, because on a nap surface, if I don't have any topping, all the stitches would just sink in and they won't look very pretty. The only problem with the water soluble is that over time those nap loops starts coming back on the surface. You could change the design in the software to add more underlay so that there will be really dense underlay, which makes the stitch a bit heavier too. But then one of the really my favorite ones are these ones that are heat away stabilizers. There's a Sew and Heat, Heat and Gone, Heat Away. So multiple companies again, pretty much every manufacturer who makes stabilizers have a similar product. So I'm gonna use this Floriani one. One thing about the Floriani one is that one side is a bit rougher. The rougher side goes against the fabric. It just kind of holds it better there. It doesn't slide as easy. This will not disappear with the washing. It will only disappear with the heat of an iron. The dryer heat is not hot enough for that either. So the benefit on that one is that all those stitches, all those loops will stay underneath the stitches. This was another product that I had used in the past. It's a bit heavier. It's a kind of permanent topping. This was Hoopitol made this one called Dry Cover Up. It just makes the design a bit denser. So again, that could be another option. You would just tear the excess out and leave anything underneath the stitches. But my favorite really for the towels is are these heat away toppings. First, I want to mark the location of the embroidery design, the center of the design, because that's the easiest one for me to align it then. There are the industry standards. Of course, you could always put wherever you want, it's your towel. But there are some industry standards on or recommendations where to put the designs. This one is printed from the Embroidery Library website. Dime has really nice tools, templates that you can use also. So on this one, also as for towels, this is just a regular bath towel, not the bath sheet. The bath towel, so 4 inches above the hem or 1.5 to 2 inches above the border. Well, this one has the border, so I'm gonna go to 1.5 to 2 inches above the border. My design is fairly large. It's almost 6 inches tall, so I decided to go 1.5 inches above the border. So that'll be the bottom of my design. And then because again it was about almost 6 inches, so I added another 3 inches, which is the center of that one. So 4.5 inches from the border is going to be the center of the design. And then for the vertical center, I just folded the towel in half and marked it. I used just the pins on this one. Can't really easily use any marking pens. They sort of disappear there. So I often use pins. But then on my machine, I have the camera. So I'm going to use the positioning stickers. Dime has really nice target stickers that could be used on the machines that don't have the cameras. So I just put my sticker on and then I can take the other pins out. So that will mark the center of my design. And on this one, I'm going to use the magnetic hoop and the stabilizer that is half water soluble, half tearaway. So I'm just removing separating the hoop pieces. And this plastic sheet is a support between when I store the hoop so that I can easily separate the magnet from the metal frame. So I'm going to put this one in the bottom because it makes it easy for me to carry this heavy towel into the machine without things moving around. So it also can be used as a little tray. I just need to make sure I don't embroider through that one. And then I will take my stabilizer and lay the design. If I don't have the camera in the machine, in that case, I would need to be fairly straight. If I'm not exactly in the middle, I can always move the design a little bit. And you could use a temporary spray adhesive on this one also if you want. I'm just going to make sure that my stabilizer is caught underneath on that hoop, so it covers the hoop area. And then I will take the magnetic side. Just going to put it against the connector part and plop it in place. And then I need to move these ones around a bit. These frames, they don't hold super tight, lightweight fabrics because you can see how I can move it. But they're great for these bulky items. So I really love this with the towels. I'm just going to make sure that my hoops, the both frames are lined up. And as long as I'm roughly in the center, I'll be okay on this one because I'm going to use the camera for positioning it. If I don't have the camera position, I just want to make sure I'm as straight as possible and as fairly close to center. I can still easily move the design if needed. And then I would put my stabilizer on top of it, and that would be, I'm going to use the heat and cold. The kind of rough side will go on top. But I'm not going to place it before I do the positioning, so I can take my sticker and the pins out. but eventually I'm gonna use this one on the top, and then I will tape it down. Just gonna corners a bit so it doesn't slide around. Could use the Embroidery Perfection tape, the pink tape, or then that is the Kimberbell paper tape. Any of those will work. And I will still do a pasting stitch in the machine, and I will show that one too. And just one word about the design you choose. I thought this was a really cute design, so I had embroidered that on this fairly thick terry towel. The sad thing is, can't read what it says. It was a little bit too intricate design for this kind of a surface. It actually says, at my age, a soak in a tub is just a wild night out. I just happen to know what it says because you can't read it. Even though I did use that the topping, I used the heat away topping on it, but still between the stitches there is no topping because the topping is just underneath the stitches. So I kind of lost the design on this one. It actually looks quite ugly, but yeah, I can still use the towel. But just to kind of caution that designs that are very, very intricate towels, lofty towels, your intricate design may disappear. But we have a fix for that one too. We could use a bit of a software and have a underlay stitching on it, kind of nap control or knock down, multiple names for that one. And that will make a surface on it first, and then mat the surface on the nap, and then have the stitching on top of it. And I saw that in a software. Okay, I opened up that same design that I had shown on my towel. I opened this one with the Floriani Total Control software. This was a PES file, this was a stitch file. So if I select this entire design, there is a button on the top that says Auto Nap Blocker. But the problem is that it's not highlighted, it means it's not active. So why is that? Well, because this was a stitch file and I opened it as a stitch file instead of as an outline, it doesn't really know the areas where to put the nap blocker. So in this case, I'm going to open it again, and it was number 25 on this collection. So instead of me just opening it as a default, there's another box that says Convert to Outlines. I'm going to click that one. It gives me a little bit more options on editing the design also, because it kind of reads the areas and sees which ones are the satin stitches, which areas are fill stitches or run stitches. So now if I select the entire design, now my Auto Nap Blocker box is available. So I will click it, and as automatically it will just add a layer of stitches behind, and it will put that to be as the very first stitch. So that way, if I go start stitching this one, the first thing it will do is fairly dense stitch in both directions, and then the design will go on top of it. For this design, for this first color on this design, for the nap logo part, what I would do is I would choose the thread color that is as close as possible for the background of the towel. So that way you don't really see it too much, but it will give a base for all these decorative stitches to go. Another software that has the same kind of a capability is the Brother BES4 software. So I have opened the same design on that software, and if I click on Tools, there is the nap control. It is just called a bit different name. So I'm going to select the design and click nap control. This one, it gives me little definitions that I can already tell, well, how far I want to have it go around the design. Well, 2 millimeters for me is pretty good. I could either use the stitches or the outlines. Well, depending on how broad this design is, that's really all it matters. But it's just really looking, well, where am I measuring this distance? And then I have an option to add a finishing run or not. The finishing run would be just doing, I'm going to leave it off first. It'll just do more kind of a defined outline on the background. The same way, if I will now do a slow redraw on that one, this one does a little bit different ways. It's kind of like a fill stitch, X kind of a fill stitch, but that's the same result. And then the design will go on top of it. And I have one more software that I'm gonna show you, this one. This is the Designer's Gallery Embroidery Works. And on this one, again, I selected the same design. And I'm gonna select that one, and then under Utility, we have the Add Knockdown Stitching. And the same way it'll give me a stitch. This stitch is a little bit heavier, so depending again the look you want. On the Floriani one, I can alter the density as much as I need. Some of the other ones in here, I have a little bit less capabilities to change them, but they do all really good results. I'm at my machine, and I just got the design on the screen. On the machine, I have only bobbin thread on a bobbin, and then on the top, I have polyester embroidery thread. I do like always using polyester on the towels because it's a bit more durable, but also it is more color fast if you use pleats. So especially white towels that may end up with the pleats, occasionally it's much safer choice. And as a needle, I just have a standard embroidery needle 7511 size. So I have my towel, and I still have the plastic seat underneath to carry it in, because otherwise I could easily pump the fabric. So I'm gonna get this big towel out of the way. Sometimes I hook it sideways because I can always rotate the design just to keep the pulp away from my machine. But I have a lot of space on this machine, and as long as I have the biggest part away from the machine, that'll be okay. So just taking my time to get this, and now I'm gonna take this plastic protective sheet away so I can get it back into the machine. And this one is really thick one. There we go, just barely fits. I'm gonna take my time to get the design, everything back in the machine. Just making sure that all the things are still aligned. And then I will go to embroidery. And because I'm gonna use the snowman sticker, and I can even take those pins out of the way, I'm gonna use the snowman sticker for positioning the design. If I don't have that capability, I could always just use the move arrows and move the design in a position that it is centered for my pins or target sticker, whichever method I use to mark the center of the design. So in this case, I'm gonna touch the snowman, and it just asks me always okay to put back in the original position and angle. Sure, I didn't even move it, but it always asks that one. Now it is checking where I want to have this design to be positioned. I could have put my target sticker or this snowman sticker that 1.5 inches from the bottom edge, and then I could have used that one as my positioning also. Then I didn't need to do the calculation. But I just kind of old habits. I tend to often mark my center of the design, so I need to use that position. And then I'm gonna touch scan. One thing to note on this one, that it is really heavy and bulky, so I need to make sure that it can move freely, but also because this one is so thick that the foot can easily hit the back, so I'm gonna hold this back or down a bit whenever it starts scanning. See, that's the one that it easily could hit the hoop on that part, so just kind of noticed that one when I was doing my test. And the camera is looking for the sticker, and because it is just a big bulky item, kind of keeps going around a little bit when it pushes it down. So it's actually looking on the center of that, the kind of belly button of on the sticker. And it was happy it found it. So now just as a reminder to take my sticker out. And I'm gonna take it careful so that I don't pull those loops. Other things that I need what I had done, just okay on that one. Uh, on the setting screen, I have set my embroidery speeds as the 700 stitches a minute, a little bit slower speed on this so I can control the bulk. And then I lifted the height of the foot a little bit, because if I have it on this heavy one for the default setting, it may be tracking too close to the surface, and especially on the topping. So I raised it up a little bit. And then before I start embroidering, I'm gonna put the that Floriani heat and cone stabilizer on top of there. And I will tape that one down, because it tends to slide otherwise. So I put a little pieces of tape, and this is the Floriani Embroidery Perfection tape. Another thing that is helpful, and especially if you are using standard hoops and just laid it, the hoop to stabilizer and then laid the towel on top of it, is to use the pasting function. So I just added the pasting stitches around it. On some machines, what you have to do is to add that one first, and then do the positioning, because some of the ones, if you move the design, it will actually bring it back in the center. To go, so I will just get it start. And even if when I lifted it couple notches, I'm still very close, so I may still do one more notch on this one. One more one. So the third position, so that I'm having a little bit more space. This was really, really thick towel. The pasting stitches are just long, about half an inch long stitches, so they are easy to take out, but it can ties everything there. And now I'm ready for the final design. Make sure that nothing gets caught while it is stitching. So I'm watching in here that the arm can move freely, and my heavy towel is not dragging, because especially this magnetic hook, it could move it a little bit otherwise out of the line. And here is the design. And now I need to remove the pasting stitches, and then I can pull the excess stabilizer out. And anything I can't pull if I just touch with an iron. No press cloth, just a straight iron on top of it. And then I will also remove my stabilizer from here. This tears really, really easily, and then rest of it will come off during the wash. And looking at this design, I most likely should have put a knockdown stitching on it, because it is fairly intricate. I thought it looked bigger, but I guess, well, it's okay, towel, it will have to do. If I don't use the magnetic hooks, on that case, and I'm just gonna have the piece of that half water soluble one, that's the Baby Lock one. Oh, sorry, there's a Floriani one that I'm using at the moment. Baby Lock has a similar product too. It's barely big enough for my hoop. That's a 6x6 hoop, which is very nice for some of the designs. And my design I'm gonna use, it's gonna be larger than 5x7, so I needed to use a bit bigger hoop. So this is 6x6. So I would just hoop the stabilizer in this case, not the entire quilt or the towel and the stabilizer, because that is just too thick for this normal hoop. And then I would use a little bit of temporary spray adhesive on this one, and then lay my towel on top of it where I want the design to go. it's not gonna be permanently stuck on it. It's very light hold. So I would just put some pins and then use the pasting stitches in the machine to hold it in place. And then of course put a topping. So I have hooked that half water soluble, half tailway stabilizer, and actually marked the center, because this hoop is just a tiny bit larger than my design, so I don't have much of a wiggle room. And then I measured the same way where I want to have the center of my design to go. And because the design doesn't have much of a space to move around, I put little pins to kind of keep it fairly centered. And then on this one, I'm gonna put a little bit of temporary spray adhesive. It's not gonna be giving much of a hold. It just will give just a little bit. If you put a lot of it, it makes it kind of hard to pull that design off on those more intricate areas. And then I'm gonna use some pins, because the temporary spray adhesive is not gonna be strong enough. Neither would be if you use the sticky stabilizer. The adhesive is not really that strong on a big heavy towel. And again, like I said, it's not my favorite way to do it anyway. And after I do this one, I'm gonna still use the pasting stitches in the machine. Careful, try to make sure those pins are on the top without punching hole on that stabilizer, because it is fairly fragile. And as long as I put the pins outside the embroidery area, I'm okay. Come, take those couple pins out, and I'm gonna take it back to the machine. I'm gonna try to get the big towel carefully into the machine without tearing the stabilizer and disturbing the machine. So, again, I keep the bulk away from the center arm. It is a thick one, so here we go. So now I'm gonna lay out. Again, use that snowman the same way to align. Hopefully I have enough space in there to line up this design, because like I said, I don't have much of an extra space there. There we go. This is the moment of truth. Uh-oh, got a sad face. It says that it's outside the area, means that I don't have enough space, because this design is just a little bit smaller than my hoop is. So I'm going to move the design a little bit. And I just manually checked, and I moved it a little bit horizontally, so it is centered horizontally. And I think I'm just about like 2 millimeters off. Well, I can't move the design any more further up, because the design just barely fits there. So I'm going to leave it as it is, because maybe my position wasn't that precise either. So I think I'm good with that one. So I was just using the camera there to check on the position. Other option is I could use that little projection or laser prop light for that one too. So I will take the sticker out, and then now there's another issue that I will get. If I put that pasting stitches on it, it's not gonna fit in a hoop. So this is the time when I will go on my settings, and I will change the settings so that the embroidery pasting distance is gonna be 0, which means that I don't add anything extra for the design size. Only thing is that I may sew over a little bit on the pasting stitches, but that's okay, I can still pull them out. But that way, that's the only time I change the distances, if my design just barely fits in the hoop. And I'm gonna take the sticker out, put the piece of the topping, and then I can embroider this design too.